Hello, everybody. Welcome. We'll just take a few minutes here while everyone gathers. We still have a couple minutes before our start time. But good to see everybody. Very happy to have you all coming back who are returning. In just a few more minutes, or maybe we can get started here. Just give it another minute, and then we'll get going. Okay, I think most people have joined us by now, and for those that will trickle in, they can catch up. Well, welcome everybody. Happy Guru Rinpoche once again. We are delighted to be continuing this ongoing series. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, welcome. This is our Guru Rinpoche webcast. This is a space for us to discuss the Namtar of Guru Rinpoche, the life and liberation of Padmasambhava. And each month on Guru Rinpoche Day, we are highlighting a specific site and the events connected to Guru Rinpoche's activities at those sites. So again, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we're very happy to have you. And for those of you that are returning, welcome back. Wonderful to see you again. My name is Robbie, and I'm presenting the general framework of this webcast. For me, I'm in the United States, so in the west coast of the U.S. in California. So it's quite early for me, actually, around 6 a.m. But for many of you, perhaps it's later in the evening. So whatever time of day it is, very happy to have you. And I'm going to now turn it over to our co-hosts, Stefan, Peter, and Noor, and they'll introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Stefan. I'm joining you today again from Spain, from the area of Barcelona, from the Pyrenees Mountains. And I'll be sharing today again with you the historical background of the sacred sites and also dive a little bit deeper into some of the sacred sites as well. Very happy to be here and happy Guru Rinpoche Day.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. I'm Peter. I'm joining everyone from Samye, New York, in upstate New York, where it is fall here. The leaves are changing. Happy Guru Rinpoche to everyone. I'll be sharing some of the stories about what unfolded at these sites today.
Hello, everyone. I am Noor, and I am joining you from Bodha in Nepal. And I will be sharing quotations from the principal biography of Guru Rinpoche that we are following for this webcast series, which is called the Pema Katha. And I am especially excited to welcome y'all today because today we are talking about a lot of sides related to Mandarava. So I hope y'all enjoy.
Wonderful. So, as we transition into the stories of Guru Rinpoche in the sites of Zahor and Maratika, before we begin, as we do every month or with any sort of practices we engage with, it's good to start with the motivation. So let's first set our motivation by remembering the words of the awakened masters of the past. By the power and the truth of our gathering here today, may all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the great happiness devoid of suffering. And may they dwell in the great equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Having set that motivation, we now invoke Guru Rinpoche. Each month, we invoke Guru Rinpoche via a different master. In this month, we are invoking Guru Rinpoche via Lhacham Mandarava's aspiration prayer. So in today's session, we come to know the great wisdom Dakini Lhacham Mandarava, and we will invoke Guru Rinpoche using the sacred mantra chanted by Khandro Tsering Chudran, the revered Dakini of our era and spiritual consort of Kyabje Jamyang Khyentse Chukyi Lodro. So we'll take a moment now. So to recap, in our last webcast, we delved into the history and the profound significance of the 8 great charnel grounds. We traced the sacred origins, beginning with the liberation of Rudra on Mount Malaya and Guru Rinpoche's intense austerities. Through these practices, Guru Rinpoche manifested numerous enlightened forms and achieved the first level of the vidyadhara realization, marking a pivotal moment in the unfolding of the sacred sites. This month, today, in the 8th month of the Tibetan lunar calendar, we honor Guru Rinpoche's miraculous transformations of poison into nectar. Today is a Penchu, so this means that Guru Rinpoche Day auspiciously lands on a Saturday, making it an especially auspicious occasion astrologically. We are also celebrating the birth of Kyabje Netin Choling Rinpoche, the precious upholder of Guru Rinpoche's lineage. In today's webcast, we will explore how Guru Rinpoche, alongside the Zahorian princess Lhacham Mandarava, attained immortality. We'll examine their crucial role in guiding the kingdom of Zahor towards the Dharma and their pivotal achievements at the Maratika caves in Nepal, where they reached the second level of the vidyadhara realization and attained the rainbow body. Today marks the third episode in our webcast series, where we chronologically journey through the sacred sites connected to Guru Rinpoche's enlightened activities. So if you missed our previous episodes, you can catch up on everything. There's a QR code you should see below. Otherwise, if you go to our YouTube channel, if you just go to YouTube and you search Nekor, you'll see all of our previous episodes there, as well as several other sites that we've highlighted and made videos about. And we're going to continue to post more and more in this channel. So check in, after every Guru Rinpoche day if you're wanting to revisit as well, even if you did already hear and you didn't necessarily catch everything in the first go. So now I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and he will speak a little bit about how we are able to put this together every month and some of the support that's needed to keep it going.
Yeah, thank you, Robbie, and thank you everyone who has been supporting our webcast, Nekor webcast, through attending, through sharing with your friends, but also financially supporting. So those who supported last webcast, we thank you, and the previous one, thank you. We raised $450 last month. But each of these webcasts cost $3,000 to produce. So we are asking if you're able to please support this project. It's been going on for many years now, sort of in the background, and this is our first sort of public presentation of these stories, this research, and it takes a lot of effort, a lot of care. There's a lot of people involved, a lot of effort involved. So we hope you'll support this so that we can continue to develop these resources. We request, if you can, please make a recurring donation for Nekor on DonorBox or Patreon, or a one-time donation on DonorBox or PayPal. You can visit samyatranslations.org/donate or just scan the QR code there. Our goal here is to provide authentic information on these sacred sites, not only the sites of Guru Rinpoche, but the Buddha, other great masters. So if you find this to be a valuable offering, we ask that you please support us. And we thank you for being here today and joining us for this Guru Rinpoche webcast. So thank you. Now, Stefan and Noor are going to talk about Guru Rinpoche's role as an enlightened teacher.
Thank you, and hello, everybody. So today, at the beginning of this webcast, we will be turning our attention again to the Buddha and the Guru. And again, in this webcast, we will have a general introduction before we launch into the actual sacred sites of today. So to explore a little bit more who Guru Rinpoche is and to come to know the various aspects of Guru Rinpoche. And today we take a little bit broader, a step back and look into broader picture. And we highlight the connection between the Buddha and the Guru. In the previous webcasts, we looked briefly at Buddhist pilgrimage in general. And then in our last webcast, we looked at Guru Rinpoche, his role as an enlightened teacher, his teachers, as well as his students, and of course, the wisdom dakinis that guided Guru Rinpoche along the journey. So the connection between Guru Rinpoche and the Buddha is much more prominent and much deeper than many of us might think. And it's something to constantly reflect upon and also integrate into our personal practice. And if we return to the initial quotation that we have shared with you in the past, and now Noor can share with you again, prophesizing actually the coming of Guru Padmasambhava by the Buddha himself. So
the prophecy goes likewise. 10 years after I pass into Nirvana, there will come a victor supreme over all worlds. He will be named Padmasambhava, the Lotus-Born, and will take birth in Uddiyana upon a blossoming lotus. So to teach secret mantra, this is my prophecy.
So we have a very beautiful quotation that we're coming back again and again because it has a variety of deep meanings. And one of the meanings that we can see and draw from this quotation, and which is further elaborated upon in the various traditional commentaries, is that Guru Rinpoche is the extension of the Buddha, of Buddha Shakyamuni. And Guru Rinpoche is actually, in many sense, the Buddha himself, extending his enlightened activity beyond what the Buddha had established in the lifetime of the Buddha. To explain this a little bit further and to also go a little bit deeper, so we turn to Buddha Shakyamuni himself, who came to this world as Gautama Siddhartha, a prince who experienced all the sort of royal luxuries, and he became this, had this wonderful kingdom till he experienced suffering directly, which eventually basically made him to reflect about the meaning of life and then turn towards the Dharma and follow the spiritual path, ultimately becoming an enlightened being, the awakened one, the Buddha. So what we can see here is actually a very sort of concrete biography that puts Buddha Shakyamuni into very concrete spatial and temporal places. So we have very concrete places where Buddha Shakyamuni visited in a very concrete sort of frame that is very approachable for us and has very sort of concrete, in a sense, ordinary markers. Yeah. So what becomes, however, clear from the Buddhist scriptures is that Buddha Shakyamuni's enlightened activity stretched far beyond this sort of life story that we're most familiar with. And this becomes clear, especially from the writings of, for example, Xuanzang, who studied the various Buddhist scriptures at the time in the 7th century. And Xuanzang was the great Chinese pilgrim and monk who traveled all over India in the 7th century, visiting all the sacred sites. And he went far beyond of what we have modern day India and traveled to all the places where Buddhism had spread. And so what is interesting in the picture that is painted by the Buddhist scriptures is, and Xuanzang very beautifully records that, is that in every single place in whole of India that he goes to, he finds a site of the awakened activity of the Buddha. So he finds either a site where the Buddha taught his disciples, he finds a site where there were the preserved relics of the Buddha, he finds sacred places where the Buddha had appeared in the past, as recorded, for example, in the Jataka tales. And what is very interesting here, and it's a very important point, is that we can see that here the Buddha's enlightened activity and the Buddha's appearance is not limited by what we might take as sort of an ordinary reference point of within the life story of the Buddha that we're most familiar with. Yeah. So actually, the Buddha's influence, as we can see in the pilgrimage tradition, as well as if we take all the Buddhist scriptures as a collection, is that the Buddha's influence goes far beyond the sites that we might most likely associate or most immediately associate with the Buddha, which is, for example, Lumbini, the Buddha's birthplace, or Bodh Gaya, the Buddha's enlightenment, the site where the Buddha attained enlightenment. And what is very important here and what is very, very interesting and very beautiful is that this goes beyond our ordinary notion of how a person can be or can act, and opens up the spiritual dimension and opens up to this enlightened activity of a great master who has transcended the ordinary. Yeah? So what does this for us is that it's sort of a door opening. It's sort of breaking the concepts that limit a person, and also that in many ways limit us. So if we can open ourselves to the Buddha being not bound by time and not bound to a few particular sacred sites that are, of course, very, very important, then we also loosen our own concepts. So it's sort of a very beautiful door that points out the broader spectrum of the spiritual path that we're trying to engage upon, which is not to reinforce concepts of who the Buddha is and to reinforce and in some ways limit the Buddha to a few places, but turn the other side and go the way of loosening our concepts. And the way that we do that is not with an ordinary being, but with an awakened being. So this becomes our spiritual practice. Yeah? And this is similarly here also the case with Guru Rinpoche, who even more already comes to this world as an enlightened teacher. And the Buddha here did not only, in a sense, through the quotation, foretell the arrival of Guru Rinpoche, but in many ways, the Buddha's Guru Rinpoche is the continuation of the Buddha himself. In many ways, you can say also a reincarnation of the Buddha himself, or just a continuation of this enlightened activity that is unfolding. So in many ways, the Buddha and Guru Rinpoche are in fact indivisible. And in many ways, the Guru Rinpoche is the continuation of the Buddha. And here there's an important turn that we can observe is from the Buddha who established the fundamental teachings of Buddhism and who spread the Buddhism throughout the world, teaching the fundamental cornerstones of Buddhism, to the turn of the Guru and the Guru principle and what that represents for the students, which is the intimate student-teacher relationship, where in this sort of most profound meeting, guided by devotion, the teacher guides the students on the individual path alongside the profound methods of the Vajrayana. So it's sort of this deeper and deeper level that's being revealed of the spiritual path that then is taught through Guru Rinpoche and the Buddha manifesting as Guru Rinpoche. So Guru Rinpoche in many ways extended represents all the awakened masters of our time And that's why often Guru Rinpoche is also remembered and called upon by his closest disciples as Mahaguru, or the Great Guru. And from the Buddhist scriptures, we can remember that any Buddha who appears in this world enacts 12 deeds. And these 12 deeds were then also enacted by Guru Rinpoche, minus the 12th deed, so 11 deeds, as we will come to see. And to remind all of you what these 12 deeds are, Nor will share them first of the Buddha with you.
Yeah. So it is said that every individual who becomes a Buddha enacts the same 12 deeds as Buddha Shakyamuni, and the 12 are: number 1, the descent from Tushita, then entering his mother's womb, taking birth, becoming skilled in various arts, delighting in the company of royal consorts, developing renunciation and becoming ordained, practicing austerities for 6 years, proceeding to the foot of the Bodhi tree, overcoming Mara's hosts, becoming fully enlightened, turning the wheel of Dharma, and passing into Mahaparinirvana. And as Stefan just said, as a Buddha and an emanation of the Buddha, Guru Padmasambhava also reenacted these deeds, all except the 12th. So Guru Rinpoche formed the enlightened intention to tame beings, descended into the lotus flower, spontaneously took birth, enjoyed the pleasures of a prince, took ordination, practiced various austerities, overcame Mara's hosts, attained complete awakening, turned the wheel of Dharma, engaged in yogic disciplines, hiding Dharma treasures so that the Dharma would spread far and wide and never wane.
Thank you. So what we can see here is a lot of similarity, but also some differences. So Guru Rinpoche reenacted these 12 deeds, minus the 12, so 11 deeds, with a little bit of what you could call maybe a Vajrayana twist. So in our first webcast, we saw how Guru Rinpoche formed the enlightened intention to tame beings, both in the realm of Buddha Amitabha, as well as at the Bodha Stupa in Nepal. And then we saw how Guru Rinpoche took birth miraculously upon Danakosha Lake and descended into the lotus flower and then took birth from the lotus flower. And then we saw how Guru Rinpoche in the first, as covered in the first webcast, lived a life as a prince in Udayana and then renounced the kingdom. And then our second webcast, we turned to Guru Rinpoche traveling to the to the south, to Bodh Gaya, where he took ordination with the Buddha's disciple, Arya Ananda, and then where he took and studied with the great guru, the Vidyadhara Prabhahasti, as well as also Guru Rinpoche's root teacher, Sri Singha, and various other enlightened beings. Guru Rinpoche did this while practicing in the 8th grade charnel grounds in Greater India and beyond, and then reached profound accomplishments. So all of this we have covered in the previous webcast. Now turning to today, we're coming to a very important turning point where Guru Rinpoche has profoundly progressed on the spiritual path, and being at the same time enlightened being displayed also his progress. And in this point, Guru Rinpoche now has received all the teachings of the fundamental Hinayana, of the Mahayana, as well as of the Vajrayana. And Guru Rinpoche has reached profound accomplishment in the most sort of esoteric landscapes that we could imagine, which is the Chana grounds. And Guru Rinpoche is now at the point of not only further progressing on the spiritual path, but also sharing the profound Dharma that he has studied and accomplished with the world and with the beings. And how this begins is that Guru Rinpoche sees that the kingdom of Zahor is in need. And the kingdom of Zahor hasn't at that point had the Dharma fully established yet. So Guru Rinpoche sees that the auspicious conditions are just coming together with the birth of the princess and the great wisdom Dakini Lhacham Mandarava, which actually becomes in turn, in many ways, also Guru Rinpoche's very first disciple. And this is a very important moment where Guru Rinpoche now engages upon, traveling to the kingdom of Zahor. And it's also a very important connection here, why actually the 12th deed is not enacted. And the accomplishments, the retreat that Guru Rinpoche and Lhacham Mandarava eventually engage in is a further very profound accomplishment of the spiritual path, which is the attainment of immortality. And in this case, even the transformation of the physical body into a body of light, for which then the practitioner transcends death. And that's actually the reason why the 12th deed, the passing into Parinirvana, does not appear here, and Guru Rinpoche enacted only the 11 deeds, so to speak. So if we now turn to Zahor, we can see here a map again. So in our first webcast, the journey started far off to the north, where Guru Rinpoche took birth and was raised as enjoyed the royal pleasures of a prince and king. And Guru Rinpoche then traveled to the south, east, to Bodh Gaya and trained there, and then practiced in the surrounding Chana grounds. And now we're at the point of Guru Rinpoche taming the kingdom of Zahor in East India. So Zahor is a very interesting place, full of rich history, but yet at the same time shrouded in myth. So Zahor, as we just have heard, is of course the place that Guru Rinpoche now travels to. Also the birthplace of the great wisdom Dakini, the Princess Lhacham Mandarava, but it has also brought forth many more great scholars and practitioners. For example, we have the great abbot Shantarakshita, whom we will learn about also shortly. Then we also have the great Mahasiddha Tilopa, and we also have Arya Atisha. And all of these great beings, just to name a few, were either born in Zahor or shared a very profound connection with Zahor. However, despite Zahor's fame, it has been very difficult to pinpoint where Zahor actually is. Reasons for this might be, for example, political reasons, that the country of India, of Greater India, had shifted over the centuries many times. But also, for example, there were foreign invasions starting from the 11th century, which had destroyed a lot of the hallmarks and sacred sites of India, making it difficult to go back and trace an exact history over such a long distance. But Zahor has captivated the minds of pilgrims since very long. And in the more recent writings of the great scholar and practitioner Gendon Triple, who traveled through India in the early 20th century, we find him reaching the place of Bhagalpur, which you can see here on the map, in East India, close to the border of Bangladesh, where he said that this might have been the location for Zahor. And Gendon Triple, the great scholar, connects it to a very important town that was in this region called Champa, which also the great monk Xuanzang witnessed in the 7th century. It was a great town, which was a very important political center at the time, but also a center of trade. Yeah, and very interestingly, actually, in Bhagalpur, in the surrounding area, there's still one part called Zabor, which sort of, in terms of name, resonates with ancient Zahor. And what Gendon Triple is saying is actually that this place of Champa, the town, might have been the ancient capital of Zahor. Other clues are, for example, that Arya Atisha took birth in a town in Bikrampur, which is basically at the border of East India and Bangladesh. And a very important spiritual center, the glorious monastery of Vikramashila, located near the Ganges River, which you can see here, was said to be one of the central places of Buddhist activity within Zahor. So here we have a picture of the great Vikramashila monastery. So while the exact whereabouts or the exact location of Zahor is still open and still needs to be solved, even the ancient city of Champa is still being sort of uncovered. Currently, there's not a concrete archaeological site that one can visit. However, as pilgrims, we can go to the monastery of Vikramashila and remember the events that unfolded in Zahor. Now, many of us might be at this point a little bit confused why we started off with East India and the location of Zahor, because nowadays what is most remembered as the sacred site where the events of today will unfold is in a town called Revalsar, more commonly also known as Tsopema, from the lake in basically the North India, yeah, up close to the border of Kashmir and Jammu. And what many of us might not know is that Zahor has sort of captivated the spiritual seeker since long. And there was more than just these two locations at one point that were considered to be Zahor. And the location in Revalsar that most of us nowadays travel to and remember, the reason being that for this location is actually that if we read the Pema Katang, we see particularly Guru Rinpoche's very close connection to both the kingdom of Udayana and the kingdom of Zahor. So beyond the spiritual connection, there was also that the thought that probably these countries also shared actually a political border and they're brought together closer. So this was also what inspired spiritual practitioners to travel in this region and eventually find this very sacred lake of Revalsar. Here's an image of Tsopema. And eventually also Kyabche Dudjom Rinpoche affirmed this location, and the monastery was built there and many practitioners settled at this site. Yeah? And up to this day, great masters visiting the site and also many practitioners practicing and receiving profound accomplishments. So now we actually have two sides, and it's interesting what to do with that. So we can remember again the profound words that we have also shared with you at one point before of Kyabchi Dilgu Khyentse Rinpoche, who actually said that spiritual geography and sacred sites go beyond the notion of ordinary geography. Yeah? So sacred sites can actually appear, disappear, reappear, or even shift locations. Yeah? And there are many factors that come into play, but there is no contradiction to say that, for example, there are multiple sites of one sacred site. Here again, it's another call to what we looked at the beginning of this talk is actually, as a spiritual practitioner, we're not trying to sort of confine us to more limits, but to open up and loosen sort of limitations that are constructed by our concepts. Yeah? And here in the same way, we have the precious opportunity to take blessings from both sacred sites and appreciate the fortune or the fortunate circumstances that we're in, to have more places to receive profound blessings from. So with this brief overview and introduction to Zahor, now we're turning to Peter, who will explore the sacred events that unfolded in Zahor.
Thank you, Stefan and Nor, for that wonderful introduction. So we've now reached Zahor. And to go back just briefly to remind ourselves, at this point in our journey, Guru Rinpoche has been born in a lotus in Lake Danakosha. He has become heir to the kingdom of Udayana, renounced that kingdom, and set off on his spiritual journey. He is ordained with the monk Ananda. He has received tantric instruction from the Guru Padmasambhava and has practiced in the charnel grounds of India, and received incredible teachings from Dakinis like Lhacham Mandarava, has received teachings from Sri Singha, and has essentially gone a long way on his path of training. And at this point, Guru Padmasambhava has sort of looked out from a vantage point. He's on Vulture Peak, where the Buddha taught the Heart Sutra, and looks out and wonders whether there is any realm that is yet fit to tame, any beings that are yet ready to receive the Dharma. And similar to the Buddha, actually, after having attained awakening, thinks maybe there's no one ready yet. And so Guru Rinpoche actually retires to Danakosha, back to that tantric realm, and remains there in practice, in solitude, waiting for the right moment. Now, in Zahor, in this kingdom, there is a king, Vidyadhara, and his queen, Hauki, and they have received a prophecy. And they've learned that on the 10th day of the 10th month of the Wood Horse year, which is fast approaching, they are to have a child who is to be an emanation of Vajravarahi, an awakened female Buddha. And, you'd think that parents would be overjoyed, but for the king, who was without an heir, and the queen, they were actually worried. They wanted a boy. They wanted an heir to the kingdom, but they learned they were to have a girl, and the omens concerned them. And when she was born, they went to a Brahmin, kind of a seer, a wise person, and asked, what is the meaning of this child? We've had all these omens, prophecies, and yet they're worried. And this Brahmin says to them, essentially, that do not worry, these are not evil omens. In fact, this is a divine emanation that has been born to you. That if this child, if this girl is to marry, she would become queen to a universal monarch. If she were to renounce her royal inheritance, she would become a renowned spiritual guide to the kingdom of Zahor. And the Brahmin then named her Lhacham Mandarava. So this child, as should be clear by now, was no ordinary child. In one day, she would grow as much as a normal child would grow in a month. And soon, by the age of 13, she had grown into a beautiful woman. And she was the talk of not only Zahor, but realms far beyond. And people started to hear about this Mandarava, Lhacham Mandarava. And they started to arrive at the palace. Suitors arrived from not only other kingdoms of India, but China, Kashmir, and beyond, and started to ask for her hand in marriage. Now, this is exactly what the king wanted in order to create, let's say, more political alliances, in order for his daughter to have a normal royal life. But Lhacham Mandarava would have none of it. She wanted to practice the Dharma. You know, she's essentially an emanation of the Buddha, of Vajravarahi. So she wants to practice and refuses every suitor presented to her. And the king, vidyadhara, becomes upset, and he actually punishes her by sending her into confinement, into a tower, until she comes to her senses, let's say. And she's there, she's in her tower, confined there, and decides to escape. This is not the life that she wants. And she leaves the palace. She escapes with one of her attendants, travels not too far, but at a certain distance, she cries out, essentially, and says that the royal life is not for her. And she takes her jewels, her ornaments, and smashes them and offers them up to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and makes a prayer and says, may all my aspirations for the Dharma be fulfilled. And then takes her beautiful clothes, cuts them up, tosses them in the air, and says, may I never be overtaken by the 8 worldly concerns. And her attendant's watching her do this and is shocked, begins to cry, and runs back to the palace. And when the king and the queen hear that their daughter is so set upon practicing the Dharma that she would smash her jewels, that she would, throw her beautiful clothes in the air, they finally relent, and they decide to support her in her quest to practice the Dharma. And so what do they do? They invite the abbot Shantarakshita to train her. They basically decide that if she's to be a Dharma practitioner, she must be ordained. And the king brings 500 other women into this court, which has been built for her, a special place for her to practice the Dharma. And the Abbot Chantarakshita ordains Princess Mandarava, as well as 500 other women to accompany her on her spiritual journey. And she takes up the life of a nun. And she practices day and night, she makes offerings, she's living, in a way, her ideal life. But by the age of 16 now, she has realized that she's missing something, that she needs a teacher. And this was the moment that Guru Padmasambhava, from his vantage point in Dhanakosha, knew that the time had come. There was now a destined disciple, his first disciple, had arrived, essentially. And suddenly, there appears before the princess, a nun, this radiant 8-year-old child in the sky before her. And she looks upon him and begins to weep. Maybe, Noor, would you read this quote? It's very, very beautiful.
Yeah. In his wisdom, Padmasambhava of Udayana perceived that Mandarava and her attendants were ripe for teaching. So, like a sun surrounded by rainbows in the mist, the Guru of Udayana came from Dhanakosha to the skies above the land of Zahor. It was the monkey year, the 10th day of the big month, and princes and retinue were enjoying their private gardens. In the sky above them, a serene child of 8 years appeared, cross-legged, luminous, blazing with rainbow light. Joyfully smiling, he gestured many signs of the Dharma. The moment the princess caught sight of this vision, she was overcome with fervent faith and fainted to the ground.
She's finally met her guru, and she builds him a throne, invites him to stay. And this yogi, perhaps he was perceived as a wild sort of foreign yogi, has now been invited into the nuns' quarters in Zahor, and proceeds to teach not only Lhacham Mandarava, but the other nuns, and slowly gives them teachings, transmissions, and eventually empowerments. And Mandarava was now at the feet of her guru, and in her devotion, in her practice, she was unmatched. She soon became the consort of Guru Padmasambhava, the closest disciple to our Guru Rinpoche. Now, as they studied in their quarters, one day a cowherd was walking by and caught sight of the princess with this yogi, a foreign man, and was shocked and started to spread this news. And the cowherd told some of his friends, and they told their friends, and it didn't take long before the king caught wind of this development. You know, the king had thought that his daughter was there with other nuns practicing, and yet all of a sudden this yogi had shown up. And so, incensed, he was angry, and he brought his ministers to Mandarava's palace, and immediately took Guru Padmasambhava out to the essentially the execution grounds. You know, he was to have none of it. And they built a huge pyre of wood, as was the custom in Zahor. They covered it in oil, in sesame seed oil, and on a post they tied up Guru Padmasambhava, and they lit the flames, they lit the fire, and the flames blazed and the smoke rose, and And the king thought he had done his job. He had punished this yogi. But while usually the fire blazed for 3 days, 9 days pass and there's still smoke billowing. And so the king and his ministers start to grow worried. There's a little doubt in their minds, what's going on here? And they approach the pyre, which had now sort of become just ashes, and they look upon it, and suddenly they perceive out of the smoke a radiant being, a radiant man. Guru Padmasambhava is there, cool, fresh, surrounded by a lake of nectar, and he is obviously untouched by the punishment of the king. And the king immediately realizes he's made a mistake. And he immediately generates this faith towards this being that he thought was an intruder, but in fact was a Buddha. And immediately seeks refuge, goes to the pit of thorns that he had thrown Princess Mandarava and pulls her out with great regret. He and the king sort of take their daughter up, and they go to Guru Padmasambhava, this being, and the king offers the kingdom to Guru Padmasambhava. He essentially says that, you are to be my heir to the kingdom. Please guide us in the Dharma. And Guru Rinpoche accepts. This is the kingdom that he's to tame first. This will be his first sort of set of students. His first disciples will be the people of Zahor. And now we see here in this slide, we see the robes that the king had given to Guru Padmasambhava. So when we look at this tanka, we're seeing an image of Guru Padmasambhava having met the king of Zahor, having received the royal robes. And each part of this image has meaning. So just to briefly go through some of the meanings here, and this is according to Rigzin Jigme Lingpa. So to symbolize that all phenomena are of a single taste, Guru Padmasambhava here has one face. To signify the coexistence of skillful means and wisdom, Guru Rinpoche has two hands. To symbolize the inseparable unity of bliss and emptiness, his complexion is white with a tinge of red. To symbolize his perfection of the vehicles of the Shravakas, Bodhisattvas, the secret mantra, he wears a monastic robe, he wears a brocade cloak, as well as a gown. And as a sign that he has reached the levels of spontaneously accomplished vidyadhara, which is the embodiment of the five kayas, he has in his right hand a 5-pronged golden vajra, which he threateningly points towards demonic forces of dualistic clinging and conceptual thought, and performs the enlightened activity of annihilating what is harmful. And then as a sign that Guru Rinpoche matures and liberates beings through the resultant vehicle, in other words, the Vajrayana, and guides his followers to great accomplishment, the great accomplishment of power over life or immortality, which Stefan will tell us more about that soon. He is holding in his left hand a skull cup, which contains a long life vase. And then since he is the embodiment of the 3 kayas, which have 7 attributes, he cradles in his arm the beautiful Princess Mandarava, who is hidden as a Katvanga trident. So here, the princess is actually present in that trident in his left arm. And then as a sign that he's empowered with the 5 Buddha families, he's wearing a lotus crown or lotus hat. And finally, to signify that he has carried out actions for his own welfare, to signify that he has carried out actions for his own welfare, but is always ready to benefit others, his 2 legs are in the graceful posture of royal poise. So you can see one of his legs is kind of outstretched, and that's to show that he's ready to benefit beings. So this image of Guru Rinpoche is sort of the classic image that we see. And again, the robes given by the king of Zahor are what Guru Rinpoche is wearing here. So if we wonder where this image might have come from, of course, there's much profound meaning here. But in terms of the life story of Guru Rinpoche, this is the moment when he takes on this dress. So Guru Rinpoche proceeded as king of Zahor with Mandarava by his side to teach the beings of that realm, to train them in the Dharma. But at a certain point, Guru Rinpoche realized it was time to move on. It was time to continue to benefit other beings. And as he gave this news to his closest disciple and consort, Lhacham Mandarava, she broke into tears. She was overcome with remorse. And it's at this point that Lhacham Mandarava recited a beautiful, beautiful prayer, it's long, but it is incredibly powerful. So Noor, would you please read that for us?
Emaho, oh wonder, beautiful, wonderful, youthful emanation body, dazzling, glorious, magnificently radiant form, gorgeous net of all major and minor marks. Organ, never do I tire of gazing on your emanated form. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. Your divine voice, with melodious vajra songs, intones the soothing sounds of Dharma, clear and profound. Organ, never do I tire of listening to your emanated speech. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. Guiding the beings of the 6 realms beyond samsara, your compassion flows uninterruptedly in your wisdom eyes. Organ, never do I tire of gazing into them, your heart's expression. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's suffering. No matter how ancient or exalted my homeland may be, it cannot endure forever, for it is like a city in the clouds. On the day I die, I will leave my homeland behind. My only true homeland is you, Urgyen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. No matter how magnificent and grand the mansion I may have, I cannot stay in it forever, for it is like a bubble ready to burst. On the day I die, I will leave my home behind. My only true home is you, Urgyen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. No matter how sumptuous my food, wealth, and enjoyments, they cannot last, like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. On the day I die, there is nothing I can carry with me. My only true inheritance is you, Urgyen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. No matter how good my parents and siblings may be, they will not be with me forever, just like clouds in the sky. On the day I die, I will leave my family behind. My only true family is you, Urgyen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. No matter how marvelously strong my friends and spouse may be, they will not endure and are but a temporary resting place. On the day I die, friends will be of no help. My only true friend is you, Urgyen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. Though I may gather wealth and fame in this life, none of it can last, for they are but like the clap of thunder. On the day I die, my fame will be of no more use. My only true fame is in you, Urgyen Rinpoche. I pray to you, Look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. Though I may be learned, proud, and influential in this life, none of it can last, for it is but like the clap of thunder. On the day I die, my pride and learning will offer no support in hell. My only true support is you, Urgen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. I am distracted from the reality of this life by worldly tasks and swayed by attachment and aversion. I am bogged down in suffering. I have taken up this dreadful body of accumulated negativity. Look upon me with compassion, Urgen Rinpoche. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings. From now on, and in all future lives, vidyadhara, please care for me with compassion. And utmost guide, as you care for me with compassion, please show me the sublime way of the Vajra vehicle. I pray to you, look upon me with compassion. Liberate me from samsara's sufferings.
So, with that beautiful prayer, that beautiful request, Guru Rinpoche could do nothing but accept. And both Guru Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, and Lhacham Mandarava continued on their journey. And they went to the Himalayan slopes of Nepal, where they eventually arrived in Maratika, which would be a sanctuary for their deeper practice. So now we'll turn to Stefan, who will talk to us about Maratika and the stories that unfolded there.
Thank you. Very nice. So just to take a moment briefly before we turn to the Maratika caves itself, just to take a brief moment to look a little bit back on the story that Peter and Noor just have very beautifully shared. Because at the beginning of this webcast, we looked at the continuation of the Buddha's enlightened activity, and particularly what the Guru symbolizes and what Guru Rinpoche represents and what our connection to Guru Rinpoche represents. So what in many ways the Pema Katang is expressing, and in many ways these stories, these histories that we hear, is not only a history of historical events that at one point unfolded, but in many ways this carries an atmosphere through. It carries an atmosphere of devotion. It carries an atmosphere of a very profound and very deep teacher-student relationship. And here in this sort of very beautiful meeting and coming together, if we maybe remember back the first time that we met our spiritual teacher, or met with Buddhism, or met and progressed on the spiritual path, I think we can all connect with this very profound moment of love and this profound moment of devotion and also openness. And in many ways, what we see here is this sort of meeting of really a deep longing of Princess Mandarava, and then finally meeting Guru Rinpoche. And it's a very, very beautiful love story, in a sense, very much beyond love, very much beyond the love that we associate in an ordinary love story, but it's very much this sort of pure transcendent love, if the words are okay to use, but also very, very deep devotion. And there's a very beautiful how the Pema Katang shares this. And it's also this profound devotion welling up in Lhacham Mandarava herself, which then makes her call out to her guru to please take her with him on this spiritual journey. And it's that moment that actually Lhacham Mandarava sings this song. And this very song is still actually available, luckily for us. And we have also shared it today on social media. And it's also there on our website. So you can check it out and you can read it and you can reflect upon it. And it's still very much the heart practice of many practitioners today that recite this particular prayer, remembering these profound words of Lhacham Mandarava and recalling this moment of here, the meeting of one of the very first disciples of the Guru and this profound connection of this meeting. So we're now turning to the Maratika caves in Nepal. So this, the spiritual couple now travels to Nepal. And here's a very interesting connection. That is that in his wisdom mind, Guru Rinpoche foresees that the Maratika caves are the place for the next profound attainment that they're both seeking, which is the attainment of immortality. And what is very, very interesting and very beautiful to think about and to reflect about for many of us who have been to Nepal is that Guru Rinpoche turns again and again to the sacred country of Nepal. And as we may recall in the very first webcast, Guru Rinpoche forms the profound aspirations to become Guru Rinpoche at the Bodha Stupa, which we presently can still visit and is very much accessible to us. And then in our second webcast, we learned that Guru Rinpoche practiced at the Lunduptsek Chana ground, which is the Chana ground surrounding the Bodha Stupa. So in his attainment in the Chana grounds, Guru Rinpoche arrives again in Nepal. And now Guru Rinpoche further deepens his attainment, which in the Chana ground, in technical terms, is the first vidyadhara level. And now Guru Rinpoche is about to unlock and attain the second vidyadhara level alongside Princess Lhacham Mandarava. And again, Guru Rinpoche returns to Nepal. And in the next webcast, Guru Rinpoche again travels to Nepal and practices at the Arasura and Yangleshur caves. So what we can see is that Guru Rinpoche's, if you divide Guru Rinpoche's life very, very broadly speaking, then you can say that Greater India is Guru Rinpoche's place of training, studying, and maturing maybe. And then if we look into Nepal, we can say that Nepal is really Guru Rinpoche's retreat place. Each time Guru Rinpoche goes into retreat, he comes to Nepal and practices in the Himalayan lowlands. And then again, for Tibet, Guru Rinpoche, having fully progressed through the entire spiritual path, we have Tibet, who then becomes the field of activity, which brought all these precious teachings then again here now to us. So if we turn to Maratika, which Guru Rinpoche saw in his wisdom as the sacred site that had the right auspicious conditions and the right circumstances to attain this next level of spiritual accomplishment. This time he travels to East Nepal. So this is 250 kilometers or so, something 180 miles, not entirely sure, to the east of Kathmandu. And although it's seemingly for us potentially seems much closer, it's actually quite a journey to reach there from Kathmandu as pilgrims. And it's a very, very beautiful sacred site that we have some pictures we can share with you. So here we have the town of Haleshi in the area, the surrounding area in the Himalayan lowlands, with a very beautiful view on clear days, also the snow-capped Himalayan mountains. And then here we have the entrance to this vast cave and the beams of sunlight shining in, and you're descending into this very vast, impressive cave. And then at the bottom, you're entering the main cave here. And then what you see here is sort of the beautiful opening and the sunlight shining in. And then on your right-hand side, you see, which we will now come to learn or hear about, which is the long life vase, or Tsebum, through which Buddha Amitayus granted Guru Rinpoche and Lhacham Mandarava immortality, which then materialized and is present to this day in stone, which everybody can come and receive the blessing of long life. So the history of the Maratika cave is that not so long ago, it was a master now known as Maratika Lama, who had a dream about these caves and Guru Rinpoche practicing there with Lhacham Mandarava. And he shared this dream with Kyabje Dujum Rinpoche at the time. And encouraged also by Kyabje Dewu Khensa Rinpoche and Kyabje Tushig Rinpoche, confirming this auspicious dream and confirming the profound connection that Guru Rinpoche and Lhacham Mandarava have with Maratika caves. They support Maratika Lama to establish a monastery there and seize the site and establish it as a sacred site to Guru Rinpoche. So the work begins and the monastery is established. And then very beautifully, this site is blessed by these many, many great masters. And the sacred site is described in Kyabje Dujum Rinpoche's own words as follows, which Noor will now read out for you, yeah?
According to the Vajra speech of Urgen, who knows the 3 times, in what is known as the rocky cave of Maratika, place blessed by the lords of the 3 families, where even in winter a rain of flowers falls. At the supreme site of vast auspiciousness and blessings, the mandala of Amitayus was revealed, and in 3 months the vidyadhara of immortality was accomplished. Amitayus arrived in the space before us, the consort pair, and placed the vase upon our crowns. We attained Vajra bodies beyond birth and death, that will last from the eon of creation until the world is emptied. Thus, Master Padmasambhava and Princess Mandarava actually accomplished the vidyadhara of immortality at this site, and so displayed the attainment of Vajra bodies beyond birth and death that would remain until the time of the empty eon. Incidentally, for all fortunate and faithful beings of the future who encounter this holy site, who prostrate, offer, and pay respect there, through merely making this connection, all their obstacles to longevity will be pacified and all their aims will be accomplished. Ultimately, you will be accepted by the Guru and his consort and obtain the siddhi of immortality, for the blessings of their profound kindness and vast aspirations is absolutely certain and does not deceive.
Thank you. So the practice site, this site that Guru Rinpoche and Lhacham Mandarava approached and opened their practice, the deity, the karmically connected deity that they started to practice here and throughout their retreat is Buddha Amitayus, the Buddha of boundless life and wisdom. It's a form also of Amitabha. There's this profound connection of Guru Rinpoche and the Lotus family, and Guru Rinpoche and also himself being of the Lotus family. But if we look a little bit back into the history and sort of the accomplishment, there's actually, again, a very important and profound series of events that we can see here that impacts us, again, in many ways as practitioner of Vajrayana Buddhism today. And that is, first of all, Guru Rinpoche's teacher, Guru Rinpoche's root teacher, the great Mahasiddha and Vidyadhara Sri Singha, who is in many ways one of the most important figures of Mahasiddhas and masters, ancient masters, also for us at present, because it's the root teacher of Guru Rinpoche and is the teacher that unfolded the Ati Yoga teachings, the Dzogchen teachings, or the teachings of the Great Perfection. And Vidyadhara Sri Singha had 3 heart disciples to whom he transmitted these teachings. One was Guru Rinpoche, one was the great Pandita Vimalamitra, and one was the great translator Lotsawa Vairochana. And it's actually that then in the lineage of the teachings, particularly the highest teachings that introduce the nature of mind, that these teachings that we're still, if we're fortunate enough, receive or heard about in this present day, in many ways, some point originated or were transmitted in the lineage that we're in from the great Master Sri Singha. And the great Master Sri Singha, like Guru Rinpoche, this is what we're talking about right now, and the connection and the retreat that Guru Rinpoche embarked upon. Like Guru Rinpoche, Sri Singha attained this second vidyadhara level of immortality and transformed his body into a body of light, into the rainbow body. And the great Guru Sri Singha did this through the practice of Ushnisha Vijaya, or Namgyalma. So here you can see on your left-hand side this particular deity, Ushnisha Vijaya, and on your right-hand side, the great Guru Sri Singha. And now his student, the great Pandita Vimalamitra, attained also the second level of Vidyadhara, of immortality, and likewise dissolved his body into rainbow light. So here, this time on the left-hand side, you can see the great Pandita Vimalamitra. And then this time on the right-hand side, you can see a very sacred image of white Dara, which is the deity karmically connected through which the great Pandita Vimalamitra attained this level of immortality and dissolved his body into rainbow light. And now on the next slide, you can see both Lhacham Mandarava on the left-hand side and then Guru Rinpoche on the right-hand side. And then you can see Buddha Amitayus in the middle, for which they attained this profound level of realization and the transformation of their bodies into rainbow light. And what is very significantly here is that this is one of the highest, this is the highest accomplishment possible, which is a transformation of the physical body currently that we're in, that the practitioner is in, into a complete body of light. So complete kind of dematerialization, and the body becomes completely light. So all the physical elements are dissolved. And this accomplishment, mostly we see and are remembering Guru Padmasambhava and the great Pandita Vimalamitra. And that's why also pilgrims to this day travel, for example, to Wutaishan or Vivutsenga or the Manyushi mountain in China, where Guru Vimalamitra resides, and students receive the blessings there. And for Guru Rinpoche, travel to Sangdopari, which is not necessarily, you can say, our world, but you can say within our world system. And this is why it's also said that many of the great masters say that these masters they did not pass away. They're merely a prayer away. So they didn't pass into Mahaparinirvana, but is still very much present. And this is why the invocation of these masters is very, very powerful. And the other significant event here, again, for us Vajrayana practitioners, is that these three deities, Vishnisha Vijaya, White Tara, and Buddha Amitayus, became the principal deities of long life. And you can see them being to this day recited and invoked in our tradition, and often combined into practices or prayers and invocations. And so Guru Rinpoche and Lhacham Mandarava settle at the caves of Maratika, and it only takes them one pointed practice of the sadhana of Buddha Amitayus, the Buddha of long life, for them to reach the accomplishment of the vidyadhara of immortality and transform their bodies into these bodies of light. And here, one side note that we also wanted to share. So in the tradition, we also hear of many great masters who actually transformed their body into rainbow bodies, and it's one of the great accomplishments also of the great perfection, Dzogchen or Ati Yoga practice. But for most individuals, this happens actually at the end of the life, for those individuals that through the extraordinary accomplishments in practice reach the rainbow bodies. Usually it happens at the end of the life, when then the body shrinks and dissolves, and at the time of the death you can see this amazing display of rainbows. Yeah? But here Guru Rinpoche and Lhacham Mandarava, like the great Pandita Vimalamitra and also the great Dzogchen Master Sri Singha, are attaining this within their lifetime. And then we have a beautiful quotation again from the Pema Katang, which captures this attainment. Nor, if you could please read that.
Within only 3 months, they seized the accomplishment of vidyadhara with power over life. Amitayus arrived in the sky before the Guru and his consort and placed his vas upon their crowns, empowering them with Vajra bodies beyond birth and death, from the beginning of the eon until the end of the world. Their practice of meditation separated the domains of samsara and nirvana, and they attained the rainbow bodies of the vidyadhara with power over life. They arose in mental bodies that neither decline nor decay, totally immaculate, the nature of rainbow light. Thus, they continue to live until samsara is emptied.
Thank you. And then we see in the center, in Buddha Amitayus' hands, Buddha Amitayus is holding this long life vase, and it's with this vase that he granted at the fruition of Guru Rinpoche's and Lhacham Mandarava's retreat the blessings and the nectar of immortality. And it's this vase that then materialized and is the long life vase that we can still to this day receive blessings from in this very, very profound site of the caves of Maratika. And on the next slide, we have a beautiful painting of a tanka depicting Guru Rinpoche here in the rainbow body, having attained this highest of accomplishments. And it's also this attainment that made Guru Rinpoche's activity and Lhacham Mandarava's activity possible, because now, having transcended death and age, old age, sickness and death, actually, they could continue their enlightened activity unhindered by time. So it's in this enlightened activity, in this manifestation, that they now embarked upon their great spreading and teaching of the Dharma throughout Greater India. And it's in this form that they traveled through all of Greater India, through Nepal, Tibet, and beyond, and spread the Dharma throughout the world. Yeah? And it's in this form that we're still invoking them today and still remembering them today. It's in this form that Guru Rinpoche, one by one, spreads the blessings in Greater India and secures and maintains the Dharma and establishes all the necessary conditions for the Dharma to be continued to survive to this present day, where we are still able and fortunate enough to practice it. And there's also a profound connection here again, is that this is also in the Nyingma tradition why primarily our practices of long life are connected to Buddha Amitayus. And the many of the practices that we're doing today, joining either in the monasteries or at home, is sadhanas of longevity of Buddha Amitayus. And this is the point where we conclude our webcast here for today with Guru Rinpoche's and Lhacham Mandarava's attainment of the rainbow body. And now I will hand over to Robbie, who will share with you a wonderful connection, that is that in March, we will all be traveling together in our pilgrimage to the sacred site of Maratika.
Yes, very exciting. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Noor, for sharing. And as Stefan said, if you wish to receive these long life blessings directly, you can join us in March, this coming Losar, where we will travel to Maratika. It is, as Stefan said, though it looks quite close to Kathmandu, many of you might know that have traveled there. Getting from A to B in Nepal can be quite difficult. So we are arranging all of that for everybody that wishes to join us. It's around a 7-hour journey from Kathmandu to Maratika, but we'll spend 2 nights there as a group. So we'll have 1 full day to go to the various sites. It's not just the one cave. There's an upper cave and a lower cave, as well as a few surrounding sites that are very auspicious. So we will be there on during the precious first month of the lunar calendar. So if any of you wish to attend this pilgrimage, please, you can register with the barcode you see there. We'll be led by a senior lama from Kaining, and we'll spend a full day doing practice and receiving these wonderful blessings that we have just been told were attained through Guru Rinpoche and Mandarava's amazing activities at this site. So we really hope to see any of you that want to join. We really hope to see you in Nepal, and we can talk in person about these amazing things and hopefully experience just a taste of it more directly together. That is the main announcement. The other thing that we did want to mention, we've had a few people inquire about the books that we have. So all 3 volumes are now available to be ordered on Amazon. They'll be printed upon request. So if you guys order them through Amazon, they'll print a fresh copy for you, and it will be shipped directly to wherever you are. If you're having issues with that, just contact us and we can see what we can do from our side. But we're excited to offer this through the rest of the year while we're running this webcast series. Lastly, we do have a few questions. I think we don't have so much time, but maybe we can answer this first one. It just says, I would like to know which syllable is the one related to the yellow color in the image of Om Ah Hung. So I can just answer that very quickly. There's a third syllable, the Hri, that's connected to the Ati Yoga practices, and oftentimes this Hri is depicted as yellow. Sometimes it's depicted as green, and sometimes it's depicted as a multicolor, which is the white, red, and the blue together, and it's visualized as being received in the navel area. So that would be, to answer your question, it's Hri is the seed, and it's the seed syllable of Padmasambhava as well as Amitabha and Amitayus. The other question that we have here is, what do the different vidyadhara levels represent? Stefan, do we have time to answer this one, or do we want to save that maybe for another?
We can just very briefly engage with it, because this is the higher stages of the accomplishment of the Vajrayana path, where the practitioner goes gradually deeper and deeper, one by one, and basically attains awakening. And one of the stages that we, for example, learned today, and we will learn more in the following webcasts as well, so stay tuned, because the next webcast will actually be on the third vidyadhara level. So we have then the gradual attainment of increasingly profound levels of realization and what they mean. And for example, here with the second vidyadhara, we have the attainment of immortality. And let's leave it for now at that, because there's then more complicated relationships that maybe goes a little bit beyond of how these connect to the general Buddhist path and the stages of accomplishment. And I'm sure you'll also find something, if you want to have it clearly outlined, by looking up the connection online, for example, where then you have a correspondence, because this is particular stages of the Vajrayana path itself and how the realization is attained, particularly exemplified through Guru Rinpoche at this point.
Wonderful. So let's conclude it with that. We'll do a brief dedication, and then we will all go our separate ways from there. Through this merit, may all attain omniscience and conquer the enemy, wrong action. May all be freed from samsara's ocean and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you all once again, and we really hope to see you throughout the rest of the year. Our next webcast will be the next Guru Rinpoche Day in November. So keep an eye out for notifications from us, as we will update you on the topic and the links to join as well. Okay, thank you all.
Think
Thank
about
you.
the program.
Happy Guru today.
Bye bye.
Bye.